Um, I'd like to thank everyone for zooming in this evening to tonight's lecture on the Cold Stun Sea Turtle Marine Rescue Center, which is located in Riverhead. And is it also tied with the aquarium in any way? Atlantis?
Yes, that's where we're located at the aquarium. Yeah,
Wonderful,
I'll
great.
talk about that a little bit too.
Great place. Great place to visit if you've never visited that. But without further ado, I'll turn over this evening's presentation to Steve.
All right, thank you. Okay, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. And thank you, East Hampton Library, for hosting us as well. So as Steve mentioned, yes, we are called the New York Marine Rescue Center. We are located at the Long Island Aquarium. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit, and we are a rescue organization, but we are located there and housed there. So that's where we have our hospital and rescue center. We've been in existence for 25 years, and we were called the Riverhead Foundation. So some of you may be a little bit more familiar with that name, but we did change our name about 3 years ago. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our organization and what we do overall. I'll mention and talk a little bit about some of the other animals we work with. And then basically the majority of the lecture will be about sea turtles and cold stunning. Just to kind of give everybody a little heads up before we start, cold stunning is hypothermia with these reptiles. So come the fall, which as we're getting closer to, if they do not migrate out of our waters, they go into a hypothermia in the cooler waters, they wash up on beaches. And part of what we try to do is get people to know where to look and what to do if they find a turtle. So on that, we'll get started. So we are part of a larger group of organizations that have rescue programs. You see us, we're in the Long Island area, so we're in the central area, and this is the Greater Atlantic Regional Fisheries. So these are the organizations that cover coastal waters from Virginia to Maine. They all are either associated with or collaborate with aquariums. We do collaborate with other organizations. Sometimes we take animals from them. This past winter, we had some sea turtles that we brought in from the New England area. So we do work with all these different organizations, and you'll see the phone numbers. Like our phone number that you see here is our New York State Marine Mammal Sea Turtle Rescue Hotline number. So you're going to see that a lot on a lot of the slides, and that's the number that you would call if you came across a stranded marine mammal or sea turtle. And we are overall governed by the federal government, NOAA, the National Oceanic Fisheries. And so we do have to follow certain rules and regulations. So as we mentioned, we are at the aquarium. It's in Riverhead. So I know some of you maybe have been there, but that's where we bring our animals for care. And from that, from there, if they are okay for release, we do take them to areas locally to let them go. As of today, we still had 4 sea turtles that were being released this evening. So that's the last of our sea turtles from this past winter that we have. We have one large loggerhead that was just rescued recently. It's huge. He weighs 350 pounds. And he's still alive. We've had him for a couple of weeks. And then we have a seal that's unreleasable that is going to the aquarium. So on occasion, we do get animals that can't be released. So we do try to find homes for them. And I did want to mention, if anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, rather than necessarily save them for the end. So I'm fine with that. Again, this is just an aerial shot. So the big building is the aquarium, and that's that rescue area that we have, which we do behind the scenes tours. We've been doing them mostly virtual since COVID, but we're, I think, starting to do some tours again in person. So this gives you a schematic of the hospital area. So If you look at that first section to the right and you look down at the lower corner, you see that like looks like a bean. That's spray bay, and that's the entrance to the aquarium where you would either buy a ticket. The first section you see to the left of that is our rescue center, where we have displays and things that talk a little bit about some of our work. And then all the red circles you're seeing are our tanks where we keep animals in care. So that first circle you see is our display tank. We usually try to keep an animal that's, maybe a candidate to be released so that the public can see them. The three tanks to the left of that are our main turtle tanks, where we keep sea turtles. And we can keep sea turtles more than one in a tank. Usually it would be the same species in general. The tanks you see up on the top in the middle are all our seal tanks. Anytime we have a seal in care, we do keep them isolated, only one seal per tank. On occasion, if we've been very busy, we've had some turtles in those temporarily. And then that large tank you see over to the top left is what we call our cetacean tank, where on occasion we have had a dolphin or a porpoise in our care. Again, some of these slides might still show what we do. We are the New York Marine Rescue Center, but our primary objectives are rescue, recovery, release, and of course research as well. So there you see that hotline number again. You will see that number pretty regularly on these slides. And these are several turtles that were rescued. And I will talk a little bit more about the actual rescue process with sea turtles as we get into the cold stun section. So besides turtles that are cold stun, we do have animals that on occasion are hit by boats. Sometimes they have the turtle you see on the top actually swallowed a fishing hook. So he was that had to be surgically removed. We're fortunate enough to have several veterinarians that help us with surgeries and care as well. So that's what you see down in the bottom right. And then, of course, if we are successful in our rehabilitation process, we do release our animals back into the wild. They don't necessarily have to be released where they were found. Most of our releases we do on the South Shore and the Hampton Bays area. That release that was tonight was at Tiana Beach in Hampton Bays. And yes, that's what you're seeing here, a turtle that was released. If you're wondering what that is on its back, that is a satellite tracking tag. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about what they do and how they're attached when we get into that part with the turtles. This is a map of a satellite tracking tag. This was a turtle that was released several years ago called Anchor. He actually had swallowed a fishing hook. So you're seeing some of the data on where that turtle traveled around. And many of the turtles that we do recover and are able to be released, we do release them in the summer when the water temperatures are the warmest. And then we do have a variety of educational programs. We did run some a camp this past summer. We do come to schools. We do a variety of lectures about marine pollution, endangered species. We do some programs where we show children how to go through the process of rescuing a dolphin. As I mentioned before, we have our behind the scenes tours as well. So if anybody has any interest in educational programs, you can go to our website or call our office. And the last year and a half, most of our programming has been either virtual or non-existent, as most organizations. So just quickly, we do have seals in our waters. in general, we have 4 species of seals that we find here. Harbor seal, the gray seal, the harp seal, and the hooded seal. So as we start getting into the colder weather, October, November, our seal population will increase. And they basically stay here for the winter months. Some of the hooded and the harp seal you see on the bottom do travel down here from Arctic areas. The gray seal and the harbor seal are not true Arctic seals, but they shift up to the northern Gulf of Maine and up there for the summer, and then they come back down here in the winter. So there are some organizations that do walks, the parks. We do seal watching out of Freeport in Nassau County. So if you have some interest in that, that's something that you can consider to maybe do in the winter months. And then some of the basic cetaceans that we have had or tried to take care of or respond to are the ones you see here. So cetaceans are whales, dolphins, and porpoises. The common dolphin and the bottlenose dolphin we see pretty regularly in the waters around Long Island. And we're collaborating with Captain Lou. We do whale watching in the summer months through into November. So again, sea turtles are our primary discussion today. We do break sea turtles actually into 3 different categories. Our land turtles. And so if you think of a tortoise or a box turtle that we have on Long Island, that's more or less our land turtles. The turtles you see on the left are what we call our semi-aquatic turtles. So they're turtles that spend some time in the water, some time on the land. They're usually near coastal areas or ponds in that area. So we do get calls from people that mistake our semi-aquatic turtles for sea turtles. And then we have what we call our fully aquatic turtles, which are sea turtles. So if you look at the 2 turtles on the right, you can see that they have those, especially those front flippers are very long. They cannot retract them into their shell. They can't really retract their head into their shell like you see on the semi-aquatic turtles on the left. So just a little bit of background about sea turtles before I talk about the specific varieties. There are 7 species of sea turtles that exist in the world, and we are fortunate enough to have 4 of them that frequent Long Island waters in the summer months. They are reptiles, as I had said before, so they are protected by the Endangered Species Act. Our marine mammals are protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, so even some of the animals that aren't necessarily endangered are protected, federally protected from harassment, hunting, feeding, possibly habitat destruction. But sea turtles are all either listed as endangered or threatened. The sea turtle evolved about 110 million years ago. So they've been around for a while. So, and again, like I said before, we have 7 species that exist in the world. Their shell is their shell for their entire life. So that shell grows as the turtle grows. It's bone, and then those scutes or scales that you're seeing on the top, where it's the different patterns and everything, that's made out of keratin. So as the sea turtle's shell grows, that splinters and continues to grow as well. So as I said, we have 4 species of sea turtles that do frequent Long Island. All except one of them are susceptible to cold stunning. So I'll mention that turtle when we get to them. So the Atlantic green sea turtle is the largest of our sea turtles. They get to be about 350 to 450 pounds, fairly large. They basically feed on plant life. As juveniles, they'll eat crustaceans and things like that. But once they become adults, they basically are herbivores. So if you look at that turtle's head in the top corner there, you can see he's got really serrated jaws, which work out good for tearing at seagrass and different kinds of plankton. So again, like I said, these are one of the turtles that do cold stun. we did, I'll show you a chart in a little while that gives you some of the breakdowns of the animals that we did have in, as far as cold stunning. So our loggerhead sea turtle, I mentioned before, we do have one large loggerhead. That turtle that I had mentioned earlier that we're having care is a loggerhead. He is about 350 pounds, so he's pretty much as big as these turtles will get. And you can see they have a little bit more of a reddish brown color to them. They have a really thick neck. All our sea turtles do have claws, so if you take a look at this picture in the lower right, you get a pretty good look at those front claws. So they usually in general have 1 or 2 claws. And this turtle's diet varies. They eat crustaceans, crabs, clams, a little bit more varied diet as you know, as adults as well. So the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle is the smallest of our sea turtles. It's also the most endangered. One of the things I did want to mention is sea turtles do not nest on Long Island, but several years ago we did have an unusual event. The Kemp's Ridley came on shore in the Rockaways and did nest. So the turtle had laid eggs. We had left the eggs. They were being monitored, but towards the end of the incubation period, which is about 60 days or so for sea turtles, they were brought indoors to finish the incubation. And we had a successful hatching of 95 little hatchlings, which were released in the Rockaways as well. So that was a little unusual. You know, we don't really know why that occurred. You know, we have on occasion had turtles come on the beaches and do what we call false egg laying, but this was the first time we had a documentation of a turtle laying eggs on Long Island. So again, these are the small. They get up to about 120 pounds or so. A little bit darker color of their shell you can see here. It's a little bit more heart-shaped. So, and again, their diet varies as well. So all the turtles, they vary in their dive depths and times. The Kemp's Ridley tends to be one of the shorter divers, maybe on average about 20 minutes or so, not quite as deep. All the way up to our leatherback turtle, which is the largest of our sea turtles. They can dive down to fairly deep dives. So up to 3,000 to 4,000 feet. So as you can see, this turtle is a large turtle. I had mentioned before that the green sea turtle was the largest of the hard-shelled turtles. So the leatherback has more of a leathery, you can see this type of skin on its back. They can easily get up to over 1,000 pounds. Their diet is jellyfish. But they do have the ability to eat a lot of jellyfish. They can eat up to about 70% of their body weight in jellyfish a day. So that becomes an issue for these animals as well, as they all are eating things that kind of look like trash in the water as well. So we are faced with a lot of times some of these animals are ingesting plastic bags, getting entangled in balloons, eating small pieces of plastic. So certainly for these animals, as well as, you know, pretty much all our marine life and other animals, you know, are faced with ingesting, you know, plastics and trash. So this gives you a shot at the leatherback's mouth. So you're looking at these protrusions that are in its mouth and all the sea turtles' mouths, and those are called papillae. So they help with holding on to whatever prey they've captured, maybe tearing it apart a little bit, and aid in the process of swallowing whatever they've captured. As I mentioned before, leatherbacks, their diet is jellyfish. So we're looking at the two main parts of a sea turtle shell. The top part, which is called the carapace. As I mentioned before, their shell is bone, and then what you're looking at, these patterns are called scutes or scales. They are reptiles. and they are made out of keratin. So as the turtle grows and their bony shell grows, this will splinter and continue to grow as well. The patterns can be used to identify the turtle. So the scutes you see running across the middle of the shell are the ones for the vertebrae. Sea turtles' spine and vertebrae are fused to the shell. And then the pairs that you see outside those vertebrae, that vertebrae area, are what we call the costals. And they can be used to help identify a specific turtle. So here you see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs. So that indicates it was in this case, this one was a loggerhead. The bottom shell is called the plastron. And the person that you see holding the turtle is holding a smaller turtle the way you would want to hold a turtle, away from its front powerful flippers, away from the claws that are in it. It's those front flippers from maybe scratching you, and also keeping away from its head. Sea turtles do not have diaphragms like we do, so they need to be able to lift their head to take a breath. So see a sea turtle laying on its carapace for a long period of time is not going to be able to breathe. So unfortunately, we have an updated lecture, but I had some technical issues. So this one has the charts that are a couple of years older, but this gives you an idea of the animals overall that we've had. As I mentioned, we've been celebrating our 25th anniversary. So prior to 1996 or so, there was an organization called Okinos, and they did the same work that we do. So again, we are responding to sea turtles, cetaceans, which are whales, dolphins, and porpoises, and our sea turtles. And this one, although it's from 2018, statistically, the charts end up being fairly similar. As you can see here, we tend to have the winter months, we do respond more to seals. Summer months are a little bit quieter. And then as we get into the fall, we start looking at our animals that are from the cold stunning. So in general, the turtles that we do find in the summertime tend to be more human issues, boat strikes, entanglements. A lot of times they wash up on the beach, they're not alive anymore. So, we have a lot of boats out on the water, the turtles are on the water. So unfortunately, that becomes an issue. As you can see here, when we get into November and December, that's when we start bringing in our cold stun turtles. So a couple of things I did mention before, but you can see here, these are some pictures of animals that had human interaction, entanglement. So a large leatherback like this has been successfully on occasion unentangled. Boat strikes, depending on how much damage was done to the turtle's shell, will really determine whether the turtle will survive and/or how it's going to rehabilitate, and will it be able to be released back into the wild. And here's another one, fishing hook. Unfortunately, a lot of times if fishermen, they hook a turtle, they just cut the line off and just let the turtle go. And this one, difference between this chart and the chart before is this one is just our sea turtles. So I won't. If you notice where it said hybrid, on occasion we've had turtles that have been a mixture. In general, that would be a loggerhead and a green. So the turtle would exhibit some characteristics of both turtles. So I'm not really sure what this hybrid was, but in general, that's the combination. So, all right, so to talk about the cold stunning, as I mentioned before, we talked about sea turtles being reptiles. They are here in the summertime in particular, when the water is the warmest, like right now in the 70s, and they're feeding and foraging. And then as the water temperatures start cooling down, they should figure out that, they should migrate further south. So we use mid-October, 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of that barometer where we're starting to look for animals that are going to be having issues of being able to power themselves into, south from here. So this again is just another chart giving you a breakdown of cold stun turtles. So 2018, we had about 43. 2019, we had over 80 turtles. That was probably the other than 1995, was the largest year of turtles that we had. Last year, the number was about half of that, and it's not necessarily something that we know the reasons why. It could be just a lack of people out there looking for them. Maybe they weren't found. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a trend. New England does get a tremendous number of cold stun turtles in the fall. They had somewhere between 800 and 1,000 turtles this past fall. They tend to concentrate in more of that area, that Cape Cod area where that peninsula is in there. So ourselves and another organization, Atlantic Marine Conservation Society, did bring some of those turtles down here to take care of them. So in general, we consider certain beaches and certain areas to be prime areas for cold stunning, and those areas are our north-facing beaches. As you can see by this map of Long Island, the prime areas where we find about 70%, 75% of our sea turtle cold stunning is north-facing beaches in the town of Southampton, East Hampton, and Southold. And as you can see here, the majority of our cold stunning turtles will wash up on north-facing beaches. So in particular, when we have storms in the fall where we have strong northwest, northeast winds, where the turtles maybe are out in the open ocean, they get thrown back into the sound areas, into these inlet areas. Possibly they've been in the warm, in the sound, and when they decide to start migrating, the water that they get to in the ocean is colder. The turtles that do cold stun tend to be younger turtles, juveniles. So it's possible for these animals, it's the first time they've gone through that cycle of where they, left where they went as hatchlings, they reach a certain size, where they shift towards coastal areas because it's rich in food and things for them to eat. And then they just sometimes, haven't made the right decision or didn't read the textbook about what they're supposed to do in the fall. So again, all Long Island waters are candidates for turtles to wash up on the beach cold stun, but the majority of our hotspots are this North Fork area, the North Fork that goes to Orient Point, and then the North Fork, the southern part that goes out to Montauk. So doing this lecture in an East Hampton area, although it's a Zoom lecture, we get people from all over. If you're in this area and you walk the beaches, you're in the hotspot area for cold stunning. And basically, this is just showing 1 year, but it gives you the same pattern. And we've updated the chart for last year as well, and it's pretty much, it's the same. So when we're walking the beach, what we do is we ask people to look at certain areas of the beach. So the high tide line. Sorry, I apologize for that.
No, it's real.
Sorry, I apologize for that. All right. So anyhow, I apologize for that. Sorry about that. I thought I disconnected it, but I guess I didn't. So again, certain areas I've mentioned before that when we look for those storms and certain specific winds, we also look to walk the beaches, in particular at high tide. Areas to look for turtles, or if you're walking, if you want to keep your an eye open for turtles, would be the high tide line, the rack line right along the shore. In general, most of the time, these turtles are small. Okay, and about the size of a plate. So if you can imagine how big a plate is, they tend to be small. So if they're on their carapace and they're in debris and trash like you're seeing here, if you're not really looking for them, it's easy enough to walk past them. So I got a couple examples here of turtles that are washed up. What's important also, when possible, is if you're looking closer to high tide, is because, in particular, as we get into the colder weather, once the turtle is out of the water, I mean, our water temperatures, even in December, could be in the 40s. The turtle's temperature might be, around 40 or so. But once they're on land, especially if it's for a long period of time, if the temperature is below freezing, or at night it goes below freezing, they can't sustain that, and they don't survive. Also, the longer that they're on the shore and out of the water, the more they're subject to, in particular, frostbite, predation by other animals. So, the quicker we can get to these turtles, the better the chances of them surviving. Again, it's just to give you an idea of where you might see a turtle, how it might actually kind of like meld in or blend in with its surroundings, where if you aren't looking for the turtle, you might not see it. Also, is a strong possibility that the turtle isn't going to look like it's alive, especially as we get into a little bit cooler months. So just because the turtle isn't showing or responding at all doesn't necessarily mean it's not alive. So what we do ask is, if once the turtle is found, that you do not want to put it in a car and warm it up quickly. That ends up being a little bit too much of a shock. So our process of trying to rehabilitate a cold stunned turtle is to bringing back to our rescue center at the temperature, or as close to the temperature that was found as possible. So that would involve driving in a cool car, or windows open, or whatever. What you're seeing here is 3 cold stunned turtles that are having their temperatures taken, so that we want to monitor their temperature. So once we do get them in care, we will warm them up, but we do that very, very slowly. And we try to keep that to about 2.5 degrees Celsius, which is maybe 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit per day. So it's a slow process. We do classify the cold stunning from 1 to 4. So if we have a class 1 sea turtle, it's a turtle that's maybe lethargic, but showing life signs. That usually is a pretty good candidate for rehab. And that would probably be more in November, early November, October, down to our class 4 turtle, which would be a turtle that is showing no life signs at all. Maybe we're getting a weak heartbeat or sensing a heart rate. No life signs at all. We've had turtles that we've recovered as in the beginning of January that have looked pretty much like they're not alive, with heart rate, a very faint heart rate of 1 beat per minute, that have survived. So we do have an assessment process, just like any other kind of a medical situation. So we go through this process of testing different things, touching their eye lightly, touching their nose, trying to move their flippers around. Colloquial, that's getting a core body temperature, checking their breathing rate. And I do have some of these are videos, so I'm just going to show you them. So what you're going to see here is, as you can see, the person is wearing gloves. They're just touching with their pinky the outside of the eye, and this is pretty quick. But the goal would be is to look for a response. So. We didn't really get much of a response there. So that's one of them. The next would be a flipper resistance. And when they do this test, they want to see if the turtle does give any resistance when we try to move their flippers around, as well as does it lift its head, because if it lifts its head, that's an indication it's taking a breath. So, and we're kind of assisting with that process. So you can see this guy lifted his head pretty strong. So that's a good sign. Besides that, we will, we will look for heart rates with either ultrasound or a fetal Doppler. Sometimes the ultrasound, we can pick up a faint heart rate if we can't get it with the ultrasound. I do have on the next slide, you get to hear. So a normal heart rate for a sea turtle is about 30 beats, 25 to 30 beats per minute. So what you were hearing there is a heartbeat and the blood flowing. So again, that's an indication that the turtle is alive. And as we go through this process of warming them up slowly, hopefully more and more of those life functions will start showing up to indicate that the turtle is doing well. So a couple other slides. Again, if necessary, we can intubate the turtle like you're seeing here. We can give them IV fluids if necessary. Some of our really poor cases that come in as class 4s, if necessary, we will use medications to try to jumpstart their heart, get their breathing going. So whatever is necessary, it'll do to help help the turtle, to survive. In 2019, we had about 40% of our turtles survive, which was a pretty high rate for cold stunning. So as the turtle progresses, what we will need to do is put them back into water. So we kind of do it over a slow process. Well, initially right here, he's just in one of our smaller tanks. This is a loggerhead turtle. So we will put him in a shallow tank just to get some response. So we'll see what this looks. And again, here it's very shallow, just trying to see how the turtle is going to do in the water. Starting to move around a little bit. We have been keeping them in very, very shallow water and slowly raising their body temperature by raising the temperature of the water. So if we know the body temperature of the turtle, we can bring that water temperature to what the turtle is, and then slowly add a little bit warmer water to get the turtle to what we're trying. Our goal is to get it to like a room temperature, 65, 70 or so, a little bit above. And these are some turtles that are going through that early process. So once we feel comfortable with the turtle, we will put them in a little bit deeper water. And here we're looking to see, what kind of response, how strong is those flippers moving in front? Is he lifting or she lifting its head, taking a breath? So this is like a little bit deeper water than it was in the early rehab process. But again, it's giving us an indication of how well the turtle is doing. This guy is, again, front flippers are important for breathing as well as that's their power. The sea turtles, those front flippers where they get their power. Their hind flippers are used more for steering. And keep in mind in all these pictures, these turtles have been used to being out in the ocean, so they're not used to being in a confined spot. So it does become a little bit of an issue, especially in the early stages of rehab. The turtles are banging off the tank a little bit. So, but again, all these different procedures are being done with people watching. So if the turtle passed the small tank test, then the next step would be to put them in deeper water. So what you're going to see here is a turtle that's reached that stage that we're going to put them into deeper water. Some of the issues that we have here is, like I mentioned before, that they're not used to being in a confined tank. So they might be banging into the side a little bit more than we would like until they get used to it. Also, that process of when they're cold stunned initially and they're in that hypothermic state, they've probably been floating around out in the ocean or the bays. So they're not breathing, they're not eating, they're not digesting. So when we get them in, a lot of times they have buoyancy issues, their ability to level off underwater, and if you're familiar with diving a little bit. So what you're going to see here is a turtle that almost looks like he's struggling at the surface, because again, initially he's having some issues with his buoyancy. Most of the time that does correct itself. But unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't, in particular, if a turtle has been hit by a boat as well. We have one turtle that's in our care. He's not a releasable turtle, but he had a lot of damage done to his shell. He was cold stunned, and he doesn't have the ability to control his buoyancy. So let's take a look at this guy. And again, it looks a little silly in the beginning, but again, this is all part of that process. And this is an Atlantic green, small. And you can see, again, I mentioned most of the time the turtles are small. This guy's about that plate size. So he's struggling a little bit. Once he passes all the tests, and if you remember that schematic I showed of the hospital area, we have those 3 large tanks. We will keep small, more than 1 sea turtle of the same species in a tank like what you're seeing here. So at that point, once the turtle has passed all these tests and achieved all these things, we hopefully we deem the turtle as a potential for release. So the possibilities for release are in the last several years, in particular this past year, there's a volunteer organization called Turtles Fly 2 that actually took turtles from us, as well as Atlantic Marine Conservation Society and a couple of New England rehab centers, and picked up turtles from us at Gretzky Airport out by you, and flew them down. The first trip they took them to Florida and released them there in February, and then the second trip they took some down to Georgia. So this way we were able to release turtles that were deemed releasable earlier. The balance of the turtles, if they don't follow that process, we release them here. And July and August are the primary months that we release the turtles. As I said, we did release our last 4 releasable turtles right now this evening. So all the turtles that we do release do get tags, either on a hind flipper or on the front flipper, and these are just ID tags. So if the turtle is recovered again by another organization or by us, which has happened on occasion, we can access that data. They also get a chip, a pit chip. One of these chips that's a microchip. Some people use them for pets. It goes in that front flipper. So it's, again, another protocol that when we get turtles in, we always check to see if they have one in them. And as well as if this turtle is found again, that would be one of the first things that we would do, is check to see if that turtle was in care before. And some of the turtles we do put satellite tracking tags. You saw that on a couple of earlier slides. These satellite tracking tags are a little expensive. They run like around $5,000–6,000. So normally, if we're going to tag animals, whether it's a seal or a turtle, it's when we can get some grant money or a donation that in particular was made for satellite tags. If you look at these, they're glued onto the turtle's carapace, so with an epoxy glue, so they stay on for a period of time. Once the turtle shell grows, that will splinter off and come off eventually. And on occasion, we've used sound and acoustic tags as well. So a few of the turtles that we did have in care that were released several years ago. And let me just, I have some of the data on these guys. I pulled it since I had this slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we are a non-for-profit. So one of the ways we raise some money is we have an adoption program for animals. So we give them names and you can adopt them. Can't take them home, but you can adopt them. So each year we have different themes. This one year was spices. But just to give you a little bit of background, this turtle, Atlantic Green, was released in April because he was taken down south earlier, was a class 2. He had a body temperature of 51 degrees Fahrenheit and a heart rate of 10 when he was found. Those numbers that you see on there are just painted on. They'll come off as the turtle grows. And this was Oreo that year. He was a class 2 as well. He had a body temperature of 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and he had a heart rate of 1 beat per minute. So again, it was a successful rehab. And then Peppermint that year was found on Christmas Day, which was fairly late in our season. And he had a heart rate of 1 with a body temperature of 38.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a loggerhead. So again, these are all successful rehabs and releases. So I mention the importance of getting some of these turtles back into the wild is because, as I had said earlier, they are all endangered or threatened. So if we can get some of them back in there, there's potential they can help keep the species going. So several years ago, we did start our beach patrolling program, and we do have 2 options. We have our general patroller team, which if you walk the beach, whether you walk for exercise or you walk with your dog or whatever, we like to know that you're keeping a lookout for an animal. Maybe some people are on here that have actually actually found a turtle and either did or did not know what the proper thing to do was. We also have a rescue patrol or a citizen science program we started several years ago, where we not only look for that basic that we have people that are walking the beach, but we are sending you to specific beaches and keeping you kind of on call, so that during the height of cold stun season or during the cold stun season, you are walking those hotspot beaches. And should you find an animal, then you can collaborate with our hospital area to either bring that animal directly to us or meet somebody. So that program, we do have additional on-site training to give you an idea how to handle turtles, filling out the paperwork and things like that. So if anybody, we have 2 training sessions set up so far, one in September and one in early October. So I'll give you contact information if you're interested in either of those at the end of the lecture. So, but that hotline number is an important number, whichever, whatever you're doing, to have, not only for sea turtles, but if dolphins, porpoises, seals as well. So as we did talk a little bit about that, if you are in the beach patrolling program, we need, there is some data you're going to be filling out, some information, and most of that will go over at the additional trainings program. So this gives you an idea of one of the forms that we do ask you to fill out. So kind of wrapping things up a little bit, the important areas to look are the entire beach, that dune line, rack line. Sometimes some of these turtles, I've actually seen them thrown up in the dunes up on the North Shore, and we get really bad storms. So, looking through those areas are the primary areas. Towards high tide is always ideal, but that's not necessarily always when people can get out. We do try to get our rescue patrols out there closer to high tide, as long as it's not, in the middle of the night. But that is one of the best times to look. And again, wind direction is important as well. north, northwest, northeast winds. So we always ask that people do not warm the turtle up. That's one of the issues that we have had happen in the past. It'll cause too much of a shock to the animal. And you don't want to push the turtle back in the water. Any of our marine life, our dolphins, first of all, you shouldn't go near a wild animal. You should call the hotline number, but pushing the animal back in the water is really not the right thing to do, because the animal wouldn't be on the beach if it could swim and stay out in the water. Seals do come out of the water. They do haul out. They spend time resting on beaches and rocks. So a seal out of the water, hauled out either by itself, or with other seals, isn't necessarily mean that something's wrong with the animal. But a dolphin or a porpoise or a large whale or a sea turtle on the beach, usually 99.9% of the time means there's something wrong with that animal. Our rescue patrols have the ability to touch the animals. If you are just walking on the beach and come across a turtle, we certainly recommend that you should call before you do anything. And these animals are federally protected. There are laws against touching them or handling them. There are fines. So we do recommend that if you're walking along the beach and you find an animal, call us first and then follow whatever instructions are given to whatever you feel comfortable doing. If you are in our rescue patrol assistance science program, you would be asked to bring the turtle to us. So there are some basic things, like I said, we would go over at that additional training on how to handle the turtle a little bit more, what life signs to check for, what data we need to get, and what to do. But certainly this turtle here, as I mentioned before, on its carapace cannot breathe. So one of the things that we do have people sometimes do is turn them over. As I mentioned before as well, most of the time they're small. So, some people are concerned that the turtle is huge, but they're small, and many times they weigh like maybe anywhere from 8 to 12, 13 pounds. If you are going to leave the turtle where it's at, it becomes really important to make sure that you mark where the turtle is and give good directions so that somebody can find it. Again, this turtle here is being held properly, and that's for the benefit of the turtle, so it can move its front flippers, can lift its head, cannot bite you or scratch you or hurt you with its front flippers. Again, this is just kind of following up a little bit. It's important to bring the animals back when transporting them or keeping them in cold, and we're going to go through that slow process of warming them up. So that rescue hotline number, hopefully everybody will have that number or keep that number when you're walking on the beaches. So even though you weren't able to.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent presentation. We have a couple of questions.
All right.
One attendee asks, are the training sessions held on weekends for working adults that are interested?
Yes, actually, hold on a second. I have the dates. So right now, and we'll probably put a couple more. The first training date we have is going to be September 26th, which I believe is a Sunday. And that's going to be at Iron Pier. Yep, 26th is a Sunday. And then we have another one scheduled in October, on the weekend, October. So, yeah, so the trainings are all, the other one is on that weekend of Columbus Day. That's Saturday, and that's going to be at Fire Island National Seashore. And we're working on scheduling a couple more, but yeah, they would be on weekends. What I'm going to do is we could post, or I'll give everybody my email address. Can I go ahead and do that, Steve?
Sure.
So it's Steve, Steve, Abby, ABBY, at opt, OPT, on line, LINE.net, NET.
Okay, it's in the chat.
Yeah.
With
And then the office phone number is 631-369-9840. So for now, if you're interested in attending that, if you email me, I'll get, because we had our educational person, we just got somebody new, so I'll make sure they get that, and then they would send you all the information.
And let's see, we had some in the chat. What is the criteria used to determine if the animal can be released?
Oh, okay, so the sea turtle.
Mhm.
So once the sea turtle has gone through that whole rehab process, we have tanks that we have them in. So once they've shown all those life signs and they're swimming properly, we'll continue to do some, blood work and make sure they don't have infections, they're eating properly prior to releasing. So, and then we get all the okays, we have a veterinarian comes and takes a look at them, and if they were on medications or anything like that, there's a time period after they stop taking their medications where they would be deemed releasable. So all the turtles that we had this past winter were found up to the first week of January, and that was from New England as well. They were found in December and late November, so some of them were able to be released towards the end of February. So, and again, the turtles that we released today were turtles that we had last winter as well. So if for some reason they have issues with their buoyancy, then they won't be released till it's either corrected, or if it doesn't correct, then we try to find a rehab center or an aquarium that will take them, that can keep them permanently. So we have a few animals. We're actually keeping a seal that was just recovered this past winter, but he's blind, so he can't be released. So he's going to be staying with us, and we have another seal that's been in that front tank in the aquarium that is blind. So that's kind of the process. Hopefully they are successful and can be released, but if not, then we release them. We find a home for them. So does that answer that question?
Excellent.
All right. Anything else?
There was just one more. What's like the lifespan of a sea turtle?
It varies. I mean, sometimes they're not, a lot of the animals that we have, they'll probably, if you look at they'll say 50 years, 60 years, 70 or more. There is some ways. The only way they can really tell an age of a turtle is they can look at some of the bone structure, and some of them have like rings, kind of like a tree. So, but you'll see that anywhere from 50 to 75 years in general. So, or like in Finding Nemo, he said he'll live to 100. They could live longer. Basically, a lot of it is based on how long turtles have lived in captivity. So,
well, thank you for being able to present this presentation tonight. And if anybody is interested in the training, they can contact Steve at his email address, steve@abby@optonline.net, or by the office phone, 631-369-9840. And I thank everyone for Zooming in, and thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah. All right, everybody enjoy the rest of your summer.
Enjoy and have a great evening.
All right, take
Thank you.
care.
Bye-bye.